As a massive film nerd, I've watched a lot of movies during my 26 years on this planet, and horror might just be my favorite genre of all. There's just something about well-executed horror that taps into your primal fears and leaves you feeling uneasy. At the end of the day, we primarily watch film to feel something, and when a movie can leave you feeling properly terrified, well, for my money, there's not many better film experiences to be had. Now, when it comes to horror, perhaps more than any other genre of film, you have so many subgenres that you can dive into. You have slashers, psychological thrillers, monster films, demonic possession films, found footage. Because we as a human race have so many fears, there's simply a lot of material for the cinematic horror landscape to explore. And as the title of this video would probably suggest, today I want to explore the zombie film. The zombie subgenre fascinates me so much because while it is one of the more popular subgenres of horror, it is also one of the younger categories of horror. While technically the first zombie film ever made was White Zombie back in 1932, starring the great Bela Lugosi, the zombie as we know it today was really birthed in 1968 when George A. Romero made his groundbreaking film Night of the Living Dead. And in this video, I'm going to seek to answer a very simple question. From this uber popular pocket of horror, what is the best zombie film of all time? Now, I spent a lot of time pondering this question, and for me it comes down to 5 films. There's 5 real contenders for the top spot. So I'm going to go through my shortlist and explain why these 5 films should be in contention for being the greatest zombie movie ever made. Essentially, if I could only recommend a handful of zombie movies to a person who had no knowledge of this subgenre, these are the 5 I would choose for them to watch. And then at the end, I'll let you know which of these great films I ultimately think is the GOAT of cinematic zombie content. Going in chronological order, George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead from 1978 is absolutely a contender for my top spot. And listen, you couldn't possibly discuss the history of cinematic zombies without mentioning Mr. Romero. He is undoubtedly the father of this subgenre, and as I previously mentioned, his 1968 film Night of the Living Dead is what started it all. But while you could argue his first film was more impactful, I firmly believe that Dawn of the Dead, with a bigger budget and larger scope, best captures George's idea of zombies. While his first film gave us a very intimate, small-scale story, Dawn of the Dead begins by showing us the wider spread ramifications of the zombie apocalypse, and how large major institutions are reacting to it, before then shrinking in scale a bit and giving us a story of a smaller group of people attempting to survive this zombie nightmare inside of a mall. And a shopping mall was the perfect place to set a zombie film. It is secluded from the outside world, so you get some protection from large hordes, while also having a ton of supplies given the countless stores inside of the mall. But also, since it's such a large place, there's always a few cracks or hidden doorways that a zombie or two could slip in through. Also, Tom Savini's practical effects are simply horrifically gorgeous in this film. He definitely made sure to up the gore factor for Romero's sequel. The only real knock I have against this film is that the tone is a little inconsistent at times. As much as I can appreciate more comedic moments within a horror experience, the scene where they pie a bunch of zombies in the face is a bit too far for me and took me out of the film briefly. But in general, this is a great prototypical zombie experience. The next film on my shortlist is 28 Days Later, and this film will always have a special place in my heart because it was the first zombie film I ever watched, so it was my introduction into this pocket of horror. And this movie perhaps has the most terrifying zombies ever put to screen. The Rage virus was a brilliant way to revamp the zombie. Rather than being slow, methodical moving beings, these zombies are fast, pissed off, and vicious. And yes, I'm still going to classify them as zombies. I know they technically aren't dead, and they can be stopped with a shot through the heart, not just the head, but they're still mindless killing machines, so to me this is clearly a zombie movie, and it is responsible for the modern wave of zombie content in large part. I mean, The Walking Dead is probably the most popular zombie-centric media entity, and that story setup certainly copies a good amount from the 28 Days Later playbook, let's just say. In a way, 28 Days Later gives us a bit of everything you want from a zombie outing. It starts with an intimate struggle for survival as our lead character comes to learn of his new reality. By the middle of the film, Jim has formed a bit of a makeshift family and is starting to bond with them, which shows us some glimmering embers of the humanity that this virus is threatening to destroy. And by the end, we have an awesome, brutal showdown where we see what humanity has left go blow for blow with the marching army of the living dead. I also love the grainy film quality that was used here. It almost reminds me of the initial Evil Dead film, and gives a very eerie feeling to what I'm watching, which is perfect for a film like this. In general, the visuals are iconic, the character work is captivating, gritty, and blurs the line between zombie and human in some moments. The nihilism is tangible, which perfectly represents the thematic core of this subgenre of horror. My third contender is Dawn of the Dead. And no, you aren't suffering from deja vu, because in 2004, Zack Snyder took his stab at remaking George A. Romero's classic film. And similar to 28 Days Later, these zombies are properly terrifying and indeed can run. Now, I love this film because it merges a clever James Gunn script with perhaps the best of Zack Snyder's visual flair, before he got overly obsessed with gratuitous slow-motion shots. And the biggest strength of this film is that it gives us a large, diverse cast of likable characters. Zombies are this inescapable threat and always bring a tangible feeling of dread when executed well, so having a number of people that you want to root for helps to greatly invest an audience in the story. It very much allows you to put yourself in the shoes of these main characters, and the cold open is a great example of this. The idea of your family, your daughter, your husband turning into zombies and needing to flee the comfort of your own home is so scary, and this immediately latches us onto Anna as a character. Having seen her overcome this tragic occurrence, you just want what's best for her. In general, this is a focused zombie film that delivers on the action side of things in key moments, but most importantly gives us characters to invest in and root for. We get good character work throughout, and for a subgenre that oftentimes looks to commentate on the nature of humanity, I think that's really important. Also, the setting of a shopping mall remains as the perfect place to set a zombie film inside of. In general, this is a great remake because while it has some elements of the original, it also manages to tell a uniquely different story. Also released in 2004, Shaun of the Dead is absolutely one of the greatest zombie films ever made. Now, I did consider Return of the Living Dead from 1985 for my shortlist in the horror comedy zombie movie slot, but while I did enjoy that film, I think Edgar Wright's movie is more clever and a funnier experience. The scene where Shaun walks across the street to the store and doesn't even notice the zombie apocalypse that is happening around him is so brilliant. It's funny yet suspenseful, and that description really encapsulates the entire film. This movie is quite clever and leverages its zombies to be a threatening presence, yet at the same time is still a hysterical film. And typically horror comedies aren't really my thing, because in trying to be funny, you usually lose the intensity and stakes that make a horror film worth watching. However, Shaun of the Dead is one of the very few movies to tread this tightrope effectively. I do think that Shaun of the Dead is more of a comedy than a horror film, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter because of the incredible execution. And this movie is taking the piss out of zombie films and universally accepted zombie tropes that have been done time and time again. So for a massive horror fan, I get a lot of mileage out of Shaun of the Dead, and it is my favorite entry in the Cornetto trilogy. Also, if you're going to marathon through a handful of zombie films, having a funny one is a nice change of pace from the doom and gloom of the bulk of this subgenre. Now we've reached the most recent film in my zombie top 5, and Train to Busan was simply an awesome horror experience. I'd say that it's definitely the most emotional movie out of these 5 films. It's a very intimate story about a father who had become a bit emotionally distant from his daughter due to being over-focused on his work. And this story's emotional core is really him realizing what actually matters at the end of the day. I won't spoil the ending for those who haven't seen the movie, but I can say that it'll hit you like an emotional ton of bricks. There's also great symbolism throughout the film. Most notably, we get a scene of our main character trying to wash his hands after he was informed that his company might have been responsible for this outbreak, and he just can't seem to get the blood off his hands, which is a beautiful metaphor for the guilt that he was feeling in that moment. I also like the addition of this movie's zombies not being able to see in the dark. This little twist on standard zombie lore provided some of the most thrilling scenes in the entire film, when the train they're on goes through a series of tunnels. Also, the setting of a train is so brilliant for a zombie film because typically in a zombie apocalypse, you search for a secure place to barricade yourself in. Think of the mall from both Dawn of the Dead's or the prison from season 3 of The Walking Dead. But with the train, you're essentially locked in with the zombies. You have to maneuver around them and directly meet them head on. Sure, you can try and barricade yourself in one of the sections of the train, but there's still only a flimsy glass sliding door separating you and a horde of the undead. All in all, Train to Busan is just a phenomenal film. However, for me personally, this all comes down to Dawn of the Dead 2004 and 28 Days Later. Those are my top 2 zombie movies of all time, and while I think it's close, Screen Stories crown 28 Days Later as the greatest zombie film of all time. Running zombies will just always be more terrifying than the slow lumbering kind, but it's also deeper than that. 28 Days Later captures the dread, nihilism, and even social commentary on the nature of humanity that made George A. Romero's Of the Dead trilogy so special, and combines these themes with better visuals and even scarier zombies. And this combination is what gives 28 Days Later the edge over the rest of the pack for me. The filmmaking is simply on another level. I particularly love how the zombies are filmed with a higher frame rate, which gives them kind of an unnatural level of speed as they're running. And the main character Jim even got this same higher frame rate for his shots in the final sequence of the film, really blurring the lines between the living and the undead. But if I'm being honest, if you're someone who hasn't seen some of or even any of these films, you should watch all 5, because they are the pinnacle of cinematic zombies. If you made it this far, please let me know in the comments, what's your favorite zombie film of all time? Also, what do you think of my top 5? I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more Screen Stories content. I've done a number of horror-themed videos, and a playlist with all of them will be linked in the description. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace.